Hello and welcome to the spring series of Artist Focus. Today we are in conversation with Dagmar I, Glausnitzer-Smith, and this conversation will be facilitated by Dimple B Shah. I want to start by doing a land acknowledgement. This broadcast is coming to you from the ancestral homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Adwa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi peoples. Out of Sight, as an organization, is specifically interested in this concept of place and the connection to place that occurs through our practice. And I'm sure this is going to be expanded on today in conversation with Dagmar. It is I've been working with Dimple B Shah since 2020 when she participated in an Out of Sight live stream performance, and then she has joined and been an active member of our collective. And so Dimple B Shah is a multidisciplinary artist working in performance, printmaking, and installation from Bangalore, India, where she's live streaming to you today. She studied an MS at the University of Baroda and further specialized her skills in printmaking at the Glasgow's Print Studio. Over 2 decades, Dimple has worked in several mediums of expressions, engaging with the core issues inspired by humanitarian concerns that address equality, social justice, and the emotive response matured out of first-hand experience of social, political, communal riots and clashes, sociological issues of women's safety, suppressions, ecological and environmental concerns in growing and developing cities. Dimple B Shah has been honored with national and international awards, and I am delighted to hand it over to Dimple today, who is going to be facilitating the conversation with Dagmar I. Glausnitzer-Smith, who is coming to you live from the Torhaus Gallery in Germany. Dagmar graduated from the Royal College of Art in London in 2000 with an MA and from Goldsmiths College in 1996 with her bachelor's. From 2000 to 2003, Dagmar had a Picker Fellowship Award from the Kingston University of Art and Art and Place Foundation from Germany from 2005 to 2010. She has been organizing international performance art workshops and residencies, producing international performance art events like Transitstation in London in 2003, Berlin in 2005, Edinburgh in 2006, and Copenhagen in 2010. From 2002 to 2017, she was Senior Lecturer at Kingston University in London, specializing in performance art. From 2017 to 2019, support in performance art and art practices with people and artists with disabilities and special needs. So it is a great delight to hand it over to you both, and without further ado.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Karen. I'm at the moment in Germany, as you know, and I'm at the Kunsthaus Babycar in Braunschweig, Germany. And I'm at a gallery retreat for the second time, which allows me to be here for the weekend in a kind of solitude working atmosphere. And it is really very appropriate to have this conversation here. And thank you so much for being here. I've prepared a small visual presentation, which has four parts. One is the mountain in my room. The other part is Holzbündel, which is called a bundle of woods. And the third one is News to the Mountains. And the last one is Purge. And we can go along with the questions.
Thanks, Dagmar. Actually, thanks a lot for being part of this session, Artist Talk. And it's wonderful to have a conversation with you since I've been meeting you since 2018, and every year we have been meeting in different places and have seen your work in actual live performances. And it's been amazing to experience your work, and that's why I suggested that I should have a conversation with you about your art practice. And I would really like to start, like if you want to start with your presentation, and then we can see some visuals and have an kind of interaction with you.
Okay, yeah, great. This is the mountain in my room. And it is based on my inquiry of the origin of ideas. Where do ideas come from? And in this inquiry, in this search, which started a long time ago, I began to have images of my childhood. And it was that there are two occasions which in a way have imprinted the experience of making work, of developing work, based on these crucial moments, which I only recollected much later, but it made overall very much sense. The mountain in my room was a situation where, as a kid, I had a room. I was privileged to have my own room. And as children now, they are full of their toys, their things, surrounded by them, and in a way being quite free in that room with all these objects. Not to my knowledge of my parents or my mother, who thought it had to be in order. So in order to give me a kind of pedagogical way or direction, she started to mount all my toys and the objects that I had, and created a mountain. So I came back into my room and was presented with this mountain full of my objects, my toys, everything that I lived with at the time. I was maybe 5 years old or something, 6. And she closed the room and she said, okay, now you make order. So that was kind of the predicament, which I realized very early in my growth of developing my work as an artist, by which it meant that the mountain was kind of a burden. It was an entity which I had to face.
Yeah. So, like this series of work, when did you start working with this kind of memories, objects from childhood? Like, obviously, it's not from the start, early start of your journey, but I think it's very recent. Recently, you have been working with this topics, right? From past few years.
Yes, it's not in a way that I'm kind of recreating the mountain or anything. It is, in a way, a metaphor for many other confrontations that I was going through in later years. But it started to come into full effect, I think, also with the memory and with that image in mind when I was at Goldsmith, or even before then, when I was in the Munich years, and I began to make walls to create something that was invincible, that I was confronting, that I was in a way helpless or maybe even powerless with. But I felt an inclination, an inner inclination, to have to create a burden. It's like a martyrdom. I felt like I had to do it. It was in an inner force to create this invincibility and then to overcome it. So for many years, started from the 90s and onwards, I began to make these walls, which were the size of my body, so I could not go around it or climb over it, but they were confronting me.
Yeah. So, like people have this objects of memory, like you are showing here. Like these objects are very important for you, right?
Yes.
Uh, and you have been. I can see that you've been collecting since many years, and they are with you. So, like as a performance artist, some people collect it as a residue, and some people collect it as a memory. So, in what way you confront these objects?
It was not in a way as a memory, but it was more to do um, with understanding the autobiographical source of where something came from. And initially, the task that presented itself to me was that of creating order, supposedly creating order, and what that meant. Then the collection, I mean, the order came in unison with the collection side by side, but gave rise to the mass, the amount of single objects and how I was um, engaging with it. Often they are related to installation, like you see here, the work of 2008, which was called Füllhorn, which was to represent the immensity of objects, but yet still engaged with this need to create order and to maybe recollect what order meant, to analyze what order meant, and to reanimate that. But also in the left hand, if you see that was a found negative, I found it in the streets of London. Um, people are sorting things out. There are, in that way, creating an order by sorting, but the sorting results out of a mass of unknown initially.
And the books which you have used in this work, installation work, Are they are your collection, and are there your sketchbooks which are here?
Yes, these are my sketchbooks. This was an installation I did in the studio, and I sketchbooks and books. There is on the upper left-hand corner, you can see they're not sketchbooks, they're books. And I found an encyclopedia for children in London, which are 10 books. And I keep on working with these books. I take them apart, I cut out images out of them. I'm recreating stories, narratives into them. I paste into them. I write into them, but also they are simply used as weights. Sometimes I'm making a collage and it needs a weight, so I take one of these particular books very consciously and I use it as a weight item. Yeah, so it has a multiple function. But here the main idea was um, that if you have a book, you're reading a book, and also in the other one you can see it. I'm trying to understand and kind of take note of that moment when people are pausing by reading a book or by creating a book in that sense, and they put something in between the pages so that they're not losing the page. So there's several items that are keeping the book open to keep that moment alive. Um, in some cases, there was a fork in it and a piece of noodle, and then here are objects that I maybe have in my technical department, and there's a Santa Claus there. So it is a kind of variety of things, but not in any way being symbolistic or something.
Yeah. So, yes.
And if you see Out of Where from 2013, you can see one of those books, and here pieces of paper are keeping the pages apart, open, still to have a sight into it, but also it is not quite clear. So it's the multiplicity of the pages in the book that are being shown there. And on the right-hand side, when you see Studio Yaksan 2007, it was during the time when I was sorting potatoes in the fields, in the countryside. So every week I would be facing masses of potatoes to sort them out. And it was between seeding, growing, harvesting, and then sorting. So those are the steps of dealing with the potatoes. And I took the potatoes home because they were an existential part in my life. And they arrived in my bed, they arrived on my eyes, and they also took a place in the book. And the potatoes also, if I remember, when I was doing that, were also a mountain. Yeah, we were confronted with the mountain of potatoes. Whether we were seeding or harvesting, it was always a mountain of potatoes. And that also fastened that autobiographical reference. And then in understanding how it all connects and still being in the inquiry of the origin of the idea, I had a reminiscence of a situation where I was in Turkey for a journey, and I met in the countryside, in a mountainous countryside. I met with 3 old women, and these 3 old women were carrying the bundles of firewood on their back, and they were bowing down of the weight. And they met with me, I met with them, our eyes met, but then they became very angry, and they took a branch and they said, go away, go away. They didn't say that, but I understood it that way. It confused me. Obviously they understood, or they saw that I was a tourist. I was not in their same predicament, and maybe that made them angry. It doesn't matter what the reasons are, but I retreated. I retreated confused and silently, but the woman, or the image of them bearing that burden of heavy firewood on their back, and you know it, Dimple, you see it in India very much, very often. You
Yeah.
have this meeting with people carrying that wood on their back. But it equally had a reference to the mountain in my room, because it showed me what the existential burden would do to the body. And so I took this idea to another trip to Turkey, which was an invitation to a residency in 2017. And I reflected these 3 women in the back of my mind, and I understood that I had to deal with this situation, because I was back in Turkey and I received a postcard, or I found a postcard, I can't remember quite correctly. And again, on this postcard was a woman who was carrying the wooden bundle on her back, walking away into a mountainous area. And the process of creating that bundle bears the potential of energy. This starts by collecting the pieces for the bundle. So I actually lived performatively in collecting the wood to create the bundles of wood. The structure of creating the bundle is devised in 3 processes, which is finding, collecting, arranging. I went through all these processes on my own in the valley of Bolu, where we were having the residency in Turkey.
I think that is the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I remember.
Yes. You see on the right, there is a painting. And that painting was in the hotel room when we arrived for the residency. So the wooden bundle reoccurred. It occurred, it reoccurred. It affirmed, it confirmed that what I was doing by creating the bundles of wood, by feeling and sensing the body with the bundles of wood, that was the aim for that time. And that's what I had to do.
And you did a series of work with this bundle series, right? Like bundle,
yes.
The idea of bundle.
Yes. This one was a year later, I'm sorry. But here, this is the performance I did. All these bundles, there were 10 of them. I placed them on the floor, and then one by one, I attached it to my body. Um, and it was an interactive performance whereby I related to the spectator, to the viewer, asking them by gesture to release me from the weight, from the from that burden.
Mm.
Uh, this was also reminiscing the bundle of wood, but it was a table. I had sewn a table into pieces to carry it to a gallery where we had a talk. I organized a talk between artists in a gallery in Braunschweig, and for that reason, I took the table apart, which we were going, or we would be going to meet at and talk. I sewed it and created another bundle, basically, to carry it to the gallery by foot. The years here are not chronological. You can see that in this presentation, I'm more focusing on the material that I was working with and the reoccurrence, the, the constant situation that accompanied my artistic life, where these things re-emerge. And they re-emerged for me again through life, through what was coming, what I was walking through, the objects or the material that I would find to readdress that original, that original
Yes.
biographical moment. It strengthened my journey.
Mm. And that is quite visible in your work, in this images which you have presented. Like, there is a back and forth
Yeah,
going to your past and coming to present and again going back.
yes,
There is always a comparison,
yes,
and
yes.
that
It's
is
like,
quite.
yeah, it's like being in conversation with life. Life presents itself through the material, but also through me. My consciousness, my attentiveness. I'm saying it's a calling. It's a calling to do. This is, here it says the synopsis, an investigation of the idea and its origin. Um, this was based on what I was talking about, but a little bit more formal, as I'm still always going through the steps of understanding the methodology in it. When I'm looking back at the work and what has been done, how I have confronted certain situations, I'm beginning to understand what the methodology is. And the methodology is only in retrospective. It is not an intention. It can never be an intention. It can, if it was my intention, then it would not include the moment of life.
Hmm. Yeah, it's quite wonderful to see this aspect of pattern, which is continuously kind of re-emerging and in your work, and that as an artist, I see this is like a DNA of your uh,
Yes,
process, and this is quite an amazing thing that you can in simple pattern form you have presented your work, like and that is a kind of a core for your understanding and presenting your work to the audience, and to deal with your own questions and seeking the answer for your questions.
yes. but it's not. Dimple, you have to understand. It's what I'm presenting here is my own recollection. I'm not doing it for the audience. I'm not.
Yes.
It is in that sense very existential. It is something that I'm engaged with. The viewer will see kind of an end bit of it, and the journey itself with its processes and how the processes inform each other and an entirety, the entirety which is always unknown. I can never know the entirety. Like the mountain that I was talking about in the beginning, is as mountain, not with its detail. Yeah, the detail almost disappears in the mountain. So the bodily or the performative um, interaction with myself, with the objects or with the processes are, I would say, maybe 50, 60, 70% unknown to the viewer. Yeah. These are almost intimate steps. I don't ever mind, they're not made to be intimate, they can be there or not there. Like today in the gallery retreat, I'm working on my own, and this is also due to the pandemic, the galleries and the institutions are empty. So I kind of came up with this idea to make a gallery retreat. And in that, the process is not known to the public or to anyone. But of course, there are documentary signs of it that are kind of left with it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you because definitely the understanding of an audience will be a fragment of what actually you are, and we are seeing this presentation with your point of view, not with the audience point of view,
Yeah.
and especially your installation works. They are like so many layers in it, and the spectator can only pick what he can understand or she can understand at that particular moment, what she can recollect at that moment, and it never be an kind of aggregated idea about you. It will be a fragment of what our audience perceives it.
Yes,
My
but
point.
yes, you're right. But I think it's still a very conscious step, of what kind of signs reach the public, are in the face of the public, are in the eyes of others. I think predominantly it is through me, not for anything or
Hmm.
for someone.
Yes.
Okay, we can look at the video, a short video which was done in 2019, and it was picking up on the idea of the mountain. Very specifically, it was an interactive performance, as you will see, but questioning further, like you said, further layers of the mountain. What is the mountain?
Hmm. Dagmar, can
Yeah,
you translate the some of the text which was visible?
sure, sure. Yeah, I was going to do that. Yeah, so the first sentence that arrived on the video, and that text is very important. It has an important role in terms of the visual composition. Is the mountain is arched landscape. If I can go back to the mountain in my room and the idea of order that conventionally we had was that the order is equal to the idealistic way of saying flatness.
Mm-hmm.
But the mountain is out of flatness. Then I came up with the idea of saying the landscape is pregnant. The mountain is like the pregnancy of the landscape. The bulge is a heap, a collection of things and stuff. The mountain is a collection of things, it's a heap. We don't know what's underneath. We see the kind of outward shape of the mountain. The mountain accommodates human beings. The mountain is a host. And the last one said, the mountain is the rise. It's like the volcano erupting. Something inside the flatness is pushing outwards, is striving from the inside to the outside. The mountain claims such sign of the landscape, and so do all the formations which derive from the boldness of the folds and baggy flatness. Every unevenness over time and speed and surface appears to become more of a dent, all shaped from the idealistic order of flatness. That's the hypothesis. This is an assumption. Yeah. So what I'm talking about, the burden and also the burden of the wood, now kind of conceptually coincides with assumptions, language, social or philosophical, which can be questioned, which can be altered, which can be modified, which can be expanded into
And
into
and
that
what
that we were talking about.
and what did you ask the audience to write on? Like, you did you
I
ask?
I gave them. Also, I did in India. Oh wait, yeah. Here is Morning Hills, Chandigarh in 2018. I gave them the sentence, the landscape is pregnant, yeah, say, as an example. So I don't remember what I said in Germany, but there's one sentence that I'm trying to write myself as a beginning, as a starting point, and then holding out the pens as an invitation to extend or to enlarge a viewer's thought in this kind of interactive mode. And in all the situations where this work happened, also in, this was Prague, and then in Germany here, people did feel enticed to take the pen and write or draw themselves. Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. And there was something sound outside, so I just muted for
Okay.
some seconds. So each city you performed had a different kind of connotations to the same idea, but interpreted in a different way.
Yes, you can say that, yeah. Because in each location, the situation is different. In each location, I learned not to bring a busy mind or a busy rucksack with everything that has been planned elsewhere, but to leave or to open up the space, the mental space, as well as the physical and material space, the object space, to integrate that into the situation where I am. And the physical investment, which brought also limitations to my own body, was that heavy roll of paper, which again goes back to the mountain, which is the burden, which is still the kind of martyrdom of carrying that load.
Hmm. Yeah, it's in all most of your works you're going backward and coming back and going backward and coming back. So it is a pattern you it's quite relevant in your work, and your methodology of working is also quite interesting. Like and the objects, they are playing quite an crucial role in your work. Um, but when you keep an object or when you assemble an object, do you relate each other, or it is random collection which you place it, or how the process?
I would never say that nothing is ever random. I think it's my attentiveness for life and the situation which allows for the things to enter. And it is a matter of consciousness. The matter of consciousness can be in many degrees. It can be high, it can be low. Yeah, we're not 24 hours fully conscious, but I can focus, and then my consciousness is at full height, and I'm very attentive to what is happening around me. And there's the information, there's the source, not the source of the idea, but the source for accepting the material. So it is a conscious step. And as in the past, I have responded through my work to what has occurred in my life or in situations, in places. Places are very important.
So the idea of mapping and the place is quite crucial again in your work. um, Along
It,
with your object. But
mm,
does this object have this baggage of memory along with it, or it is detached from the memory?
um, the memory is subjective. Yeah, my association or my memories with something is on one side. I don't know the memory of objects themselves. I don't know if they have memories. Um, but here, for instance, I had the opportunity of being presented 400 maps in one go. So I went to this place and I bought 400 maps. and there are the old school maps. So from that, another mountain of maps, from that from that storage of maps, derived ongoing work. And I investigated the nature of map. What is a map, etc. So questioning the flatness of map.
And how you relate your body with the map, like like how you place yourself in that.
Yeah. This is the last of the sections that I was talking about earlier. And this section is very much informed by the corona pandemic because it started in 2020 when I was invited by Ilka Teurich, who's in Hanover, and she created an event in her studio, which was one witness, one performer. The witness was in responsibility of finding a way how to document the one performance. My idea was, as it says, overmapped purge. So it was the exertion of all the maps to bring them together. And I had invited at the time Inder Salim from Delhi, and I had left behind in 2019 in Delhi a map which I created, which was a suit. I made a hole into it and you could wear it. So in that performance, he was wearing the map by projection.
Yeah.
By projection. And here you can see that I created another one here in Germany, and we were both simultaneously wearing the map. So it was the physicality, the taking on the mapness and what it represents, questioning the nature of it.
Yeah. Now, actually, I would like the audience, request audience, if they have any question, they can put it up in the comment section, and I can ask Dagmar if they want to ask anything from the Dagmar.
Okay.
Karan, would you like to play some question? There is a message from Performance
Yes.
68.
Oh, I missed it now. I didn't read. Hang on.
Okay, there
It,
is. I'll read it for you.
yeah, great.
Yeah, hi Dagmar. Thank you very much for this inspiring talk, and thank you, Dimple. I have a question regarding your methodology. Is planning an important aspect of your work, and how far far does the plan go? Do you leave room for the
No, of course.
unexpected?
Yes, yes. Very good question. It is the crucial part of knowing in the knowing plan is knowing the material, understanding the material as object. In the gathering of that, which is the planning, and understanding maybe also taking a glimpse into the place where it might be, just a glimpse, because I don't really know, I'm not physically there. And then 50% is the unknowing and the unexpected. So I'm actually with the knowing, I'm inviting the unknowing, the unknowable situation, which I then enter for the performance, for the live performance. That is absolutely crucial, and it's very, very important. I'm loyal to that, and it is definitely, an important part in my methodology.
Thank you, Dagmar. That question was from Martin. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah. And there is one more, not a question, but a comment from Jenny. Uh, she says, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say how much I love the idea of the bookmarks. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, this is, I can comment to that maybe. This is the bookmarks and, the treatment of the book. It comes out of observing everyday life. That is another very strong component. How acutely am I engaged or alert to everyday life situations, and what can I gather from that? And that may be behaviorism, that might be psychoanalytical aspects of human behavior, of my own behavior. So there are many, many source points.
True. Looking at multiple openings, I like that idea of, you can see the different pages and you are keeping it open. And that is the human tendency to look for many ways, options, and, ever ready kind of situation. Like, if you want to see this, you should be able to see at that moment, instantly. And
Yeah.
that idea is quite interesting, like, flipping several layers at one stroke.
But Dimple, also what it entails is it entails the fear of losing sight.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes.
And
uh,
we are very hard in letting things go. So we want to make sure, we want to be absolutely safe that this page, the page of the book can also be a metaphor for life situations. Yeah.
a chapter from a life never to be lost. Yeah, there is one more comment from Jenny. We are losing the physicality of the books, and I love the reminder how we used to engage with them. I
Uh,
marked up all my books, but now use things that online.
okay.
And Karen says, and how that changes the perception. Her comment to Jenny's comment. So it's like
Yeah.
there is a several comments going on simultaneously. I'm just reading out to you.
Yeah, sure, sure. But I mean, that's also in our digital age, to inspire the love for pages and the book, especially a set of books in this case, is hugely important. It's almost like aliveness, the tactility, the texture of the liveness, that can be preserved for a moment, and it can be deconstructed by the book losing its pages. Like from in
Yes.
the studio.
And also it talks about the ageness of the time. It talks about time as well. The books itself talks of aspect of time, because when it got printed and we store it for many years, and that talks about the time period also.
Mm.
uh, so Karen says, and love of the idea of that sparks.
Sorry.
Karen says, and I think uh, it's a continuation of our talk, and she is wrote here, and the love of the idea that sparks.
Oh, that sparks. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And and uh, so the like this four stages, and how right now where are you, like to ask you a question, like after this four stages, where we can find you?
Well, still in a way behind bars, behind the bars of not being live in India or in Canada or anywhere else. But in terms of where I am with my work, it's, out of those four sections that I developed in the presentation, the map seemed to come back quite urgently. And here in the gallery, I'm experiencing the degree of topographia, which is the writing of place, the study of surfaces, alongside with drawing a line, when it is when the map is itself is writing places, written places. It is never physical. The map is still now a medium which is in between our physical spaces, in its original meaning of it. But I'm quite critical of its original making of it, and the kind of illusions that it transpires, actually. So I'm in this work today and tomorrow. I'm with my body over walking the map. I'm over walking with my feet a line which may have derived from the map. This is, in a way, the research that I'm doing at the moment, the practical research. And today I was on my own. I was doing the work on my own, also involving poles. The poles is part of a collection that I have, which dates back to the London years in 1990. And the walking with poles, with a pole, has a specific standing in this work. And tomorrow it will be the walking of landscape, where somebody will draw my movement as a line.
Yeah, Dagmar, there is one more comment from Martin. She says that burden versus vulnerability, and how losing the control can allow us to make work that is more meaningful for each context.
I didn't understand the first part. The
Burden versus vulnerability,
versus vulnerability. Yeah.
and how losing the control can allow us to make the work that is more meaningful for each context.
It's the burden versus vulnerability is that's a quite of emotional, and in this case subjective relevance. But it is, like we said before, also this existential quest that is supporting the two.
Yes.
Not hanging on or disappearing in the vulnerability, in the emotional impact that it may have, but it is, in the sense, understanding and transformation. Transformation is then the eruption of a new context. And this is intellectual, this is philosophical. It is in the methodology that this, in retrospective of the work, can be re-announced internally, I mean, by reason.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how close I come to the question.
Yeah, maybe I'm waiting for her response, but thank you, Dagmar. I think we are falling short of time now. We have to wind up. Now I would pass on to Karen or to take over the online session.
Right.
Thank you so much. I mean, what a profound conversation. And I love this idea of, capturing, or treasuring the moment of the idea in a book and how that becomes like the unexpected moment that starts all these other but yes, this idea of the mountain and this necessity to purge, and your processes in that. I love the map. Um, Thank you so much for the talk today, and thank you, Dimple, for facilitating the conversation. These moments of the multiple chapters opening up new possibilities is really a beautiful metaphor. And I want to thank all the audience for your wonderful comments and questions today. And just want to share with you that next week we will be in conversation with Sakiko Yamoaka. This conversation will be facilitated by Ika Trinks, who is part of the Out of Sight community. And we have a really exciting program this spring where we'll be coming to you from around the globe and engaging with different artists about their public performance practice. And I also want to just announce to everybody that the deadline for flow submissions is March the 8th. So that's coming up soon. So if you have an idea for a public performance, for a performance lecture, or you want to present your public performance artwork at Flow Embody Insight, please check out the website. I'll put a link to that in the chat, and you can directly submit your comments there. Well, thank you so much again, and it's been an absolute treat talking with you both today. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
Dagmar.
Really great.